Hello and welcome back. Wow, that was loud. So, want to get this out? The Rising Stars Challenge just took place, and we're at the All Star break. So, I wanted to, in 3 words or less, give my opinion on how all 30 NBA teams have done this season, or what I feel about them this season, in 3 words or less. It shouldn't be that hard. Probably some explaining to do. But yeah, let's start alphabetical order. And yeah, obviously start off with my favorite team, the Atlanta Hawks. My 3 words are same old shit. It's the same old shit with the Hawks. We're just middling 8 seed, getting carried by trade. Nothing really else going on. We just traded DeAndre Hunter for a pack of peanuts just to get some salary cap, basically. This feels like probably the end of the line for Trae Young as an Atlanta Hawk. I said that last year, but yeah, this season it's really feeling like this is the end of the Trae Young era in Atlanta. It just hasn't worked out. We tried a lot. Trae has been very loyal to us, stuck by us, but it's just not working, and it feels like both sides would be better off moving on. So, next up, Boston Celtics. I have coasting for playoffs. Currently 2 seed, it really just feels like the Celtics are just, on cruise control. The reigning champions are until the playoffs start, where that's probably where they're going to turn it on and, really kick it into high gear, if you will. Brooklyn Nets, deja vu. A couple years ago, remember way back, when they traded for Garnett and Pierce and Jason Terry and gave up all their salary, all their draft capital, all their young assets. And then they managed to somehow, out of that crappy situation, build up to get a bunch of really young, scrappy players, a really nice young team chemistry and culture. Then they blew it all away and risked it all for another super team that didn't work out with Harden, Durant, and Kyrie. And then they had to blow that up and got back not a lot of assets. And, well, now they're in a pretty good spot now. Granted, I will say, though, they did get a lot from the Phoenix Suns for Kevin Durant, though. So it was a lot better than the Pierce trade. They got a lot for Kevin Durant. But, right now they're, just another scrappy, young team. This time they have a decent bit of draft capital. And they also, just like last time, have D'Angelo Russell on the team. They got him at the deadline. So, yeah, it really is just deja vu once again for the Brooklyn Nets. Cam Johnson having a pretty decent season. Nick Claxton's having a good year. Currently just sitting outside the play-in, and, in front of them is the Bulls, Heat, and Sixers, so the Nets could easily get into a play-in spot, and who knows what they can do at that point. Charlotte Hornets, difficult conversations. It's time for some difficult conversations in Charlotte. Are we sure? Are we positively sure that LaMelo Ball is a guy? He puts up great stats, usually always hurt. And his entire life, someone pointed this out, his entire life, he's never been a winner. He's never learned winning basketball. He's just been kind of a flashy, score first, ball dominant player who doesn't really contribute to winning basketball. He didn't really win a lot in AAU. He didn't win a lot overseas. He hasn't won the NBA yet. He just hasn't played winning basketball his whole life, essentially. And what? Are we sure he's the guy to lead this franchise? And I'm not even going to get into the Mark Williams drama. So, Chicago Bulls still botched it. They finally, at least did part of it, deciding to blow it up. They did finally trade Zach LaVine and somewhat start a rebuild. But they still didn't get no draft capital from it. They barely got anything from it. They managed to botch the Nikola Vucevic trade, and he's still only going to be on the roster, and they're not going to get nothing out of him. So, despite for years refusing to rebuild. They finally decide to only half do it, and they still screw it up. The Cleveland Cavaliers culture revamp. When it was J.D. Bickerstaff last year, it seemed like Donovan Mitchell was potentially on his way out of Cleveland. And, it seems like, this is going to be another flash of pan for Cleveland, another blow to the sports in Cleveland. And out of nowhere, they get Kenny Atkinson back. And surprise, surprise, Kenny Atkinson's a good coach. If he was coaching the Brooklyn Nets instead of Steve Nash back in the day, or not back in the day, a couple years ago, they probably would have won it. And just like that, they did it again. Kenny Atkinson has come in, revamped the culture, and has currently the best team in the NBA at the moment, record-wise. It's a really good, dominant defensive and offensive team. Donovan Mitchell and Garland are fantastic. Evan Mobley's coming into his own. Jared Allen is still great. And now the Cavs got, this is a stacked roster. And my dog's snoring over there. Denver, no, not Denver Nuggets. Dallas Mavericks. Season from hell. They've had a slump after, losing the finals last year, but still not terrible because the West is just a bloodbath. And then, bam, they trade Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis. And you also get Max Christie back and a first-round pick in a few years. So you traded your best player, probably second-best player in franchise history, the guy who is the best athlete you have in the entire city, the best young players in all of sports, for an aging big man, a decent young player, and at this point in time, probably a high school sophomore at the current moment. Just no sense. No sense at all in Dallas. And then after 3 quarters, Anthony Davis has injured himself after admittedly playing a great game in his Mavs debut. Gets hurt and will probably be out for a month, maybe even more. And now it looks like not only your future in Dallas is screwed, your present in Dallas is screwed. All because of the dumbest trade in the history of sports. Congratulations, Dallas. You ruined your franchise in one night. Denver Nuggets. There you go. Finally getting to the Nuggets. Russ Revival. Denver's back to, same old Denver. One of the top teams in the West. One of the championship favorites. But they have a little bit of a different dynamic this year. They've struggled with depth the last few years. A couple years ago, I had one of the least, I don't want to say this, depth team, one of the worst depth teams to ever win a championship. Now they get Russell Westbrook, who seemingly was completely washed up, and all of a sudden he is fantastic for Denver. Off the bench as a starter, playing with Jokic, playing without Jokic. Russ has been a revelation for this team in more ways than one. He has been a spark that this Denver team desperately needed. To try and keep fresh. Denver, you don't want to stay stagnant. You want to stay trying to innovate. And Russell Westbrook, of all people, has been an innovation for Denver. And my dog is snoring over there. Maybe you may hear. Moving on to Detroit. The Detroit Pistons. Complete turnaround. Last season, not even a full year ago, this team broke the record for the longest losing streak in NBA history. Now this team is firmly in the playoffs with a 29-20 record, 6th seed. They may even be able to get the 5th, maybe climb to the 4th seed. Who knows? Kate Cunningham is an all-star this season. Jalen Duren's been great for them. Jay Ivey's really starting to come into his own. Malik Beasley, of all people, has been hooping. Tobias Harris, this is really the spot he needed. This has just been a great coach team. This last season when they had that awful season, this seemed like this was going to be the season they were going to have last year. It just took them an extra year in Detroit. It just took them an extra season, but they finally have the team that they were really trying to search for, really trying to look for. Moving on to the Golden State Warriors. Complete turnaround. This was a complete turnaround. Not complete turnaround. I just misread that. I'm sorry. I read the Detroit one. Golden State is not a complete turnaround. I actually wrote the opposite. My bad. I wrote still not enough. Simple as that. It's they traded for Jimmy. Great. What they gave up for Jimmy wasn't even that bad. I actually think it was a decent trade to get Jimmy Butler. You didn't give up as much as you thought. However, the contract was not good they gave to Jimmy. So you're going all in with this core, with this exact team, and it's not enough. You're not going to win the championship this year. You may not even get the playoffs this year because you got to get through the play-in. And even then, though, you're probably going to be a first round out. And I don't see in the offseason how they can improve the roster, much more. It's just not enough in Golden State. Somebody had on Twitter, somebody posted the Kendrick Lamar clip where he says, it's not enough. That's what it is in Golden State. It's not enough. Houston, by the way, now we're 1/3 of the way through the NBA. Number 11, the Houston Rockets. I have still needs a star. They've had a great season in Houston, broke out. They were right there on the cusp of the play-in last year. Now they're firmly a playoff team. But it still feels like they just have a bunch of guys on the roster, like a bunch of pretty good young players, but no real stars, if you will. Like they need an alpha. They need a really good star player that can become pretty much the face of the team because it really doesn't feel like they have that at the moment. And Houston, I know Sengun's an all-star, pretty good. Jalen Green's okay. He's probably the most popular player you have, but it really doesn't feel like they have that star player in Houston. But it's a good team, and I can see this being a really attractive free agency spot or maybe even a trade spot for a maybe disgruntled star at some point. I wouldn't be surprised if, they really make a move for a guy like Trae Young, a guy like Kevin Durant in the offseason with, because they have a bunch of assets and all that. Indiana Pacers, I have B+ player. They're a good team, good assets. Tyrese Halliburton's great. Pascal Siakam was a fantastic trade they had last year at the deadline. This is still not one of the elite teams, even in the Eastern Conference. This is a good B+, 4 seed, 5 seed, Maybe they can have another, run to the Eastern Conference Finals. This doesn't even seem like a team that can make it out of the East, but it seems like a team that's just firmly a good playoff team. It seems like they are solidly the B tier instead of the S tier of the Eastern Conference, they are the A-B tier of the Eastern Conference, and they're firmly in that spot. Let's see here. The LA Clippers. I have Beard is back. This has been a really weird year for the Clippers. They lost Paul George, which now looking back was actually not that bad of a loss. Actually, probably a net positive. Seeing what he's been in Philadelphia. But, Kawhi obviously not playing because, Kawhi Leonard just doesn't play basketball anymore since he's never been on the Clippers. But James Harden has been sensational this season. He's turned back the clock, back to an all-star. Has really carried the team. Norman Powell's actually been their leading scorer at 24 a game. So it's just, James Harden kind of running the offense while Norman Powell can be a really good scorer for them. While Harden just kind of runs the whole show, makes the engine move. That's kind of about it. that's kind of it in Clippers. This is going to be a team that may get that 6th seed. More than likely, I can see probably being a play-in team, and even more than likely, they're probably going to be a first round out of the playoffs. But yeah, I don't know how long this era of the Clippers will last, but the arena's cool. Moving across the city to the LA Lakers, franchise saved. This team went from, okay, this is a really old veteran-led team who's kind of all in, but, is not really going to win a championship with AD LeBron. And, with LeBron, maybe his last year, you don't know how much longer he's got. And Anthony Davis, you don't know how much longer he's got either. You didn't really have a ton of assets. You didn't have a ton of young players that can you really build around. And it seemed like, the Lakers getting ready to go into a bit of a lull period in their franchise history. And in one fell swoop, they get one of the best young players in the NBA and sports, in Luka Doncic. And now that franchise is completely turned around. Now this franchise outlook is completely different. And now it's just not only, okay, you can win a championship this year, you can win one for the next year. With Luka on the team, he stays healthy. You can win a championship realistically in the next 10 years. You have a 10-year window now to win multiple championships to the City of Angels. All because of one dumbass trade by the Dallas Mavericks. They did it with Shaq. The Lakers did it with Shaq, Pau Gasol, Kareem, and they've done it again. Luka Doncic. Oh, they even did it with Wilt way back in the day, too. I don't know how this franchise keeps doing it. Oh, God, my phone fell. Yeah, sorry, dropped my phone. Yeah, moving on. Memphis Grizzlies. I got my swagger back, so I just got my swagger back. Last year, the suspensions with Ja, the injuries to pretty much everybody in the city of Memphis. This team finally is back to where they were 2 years ago. This feels, the vibes are there. It feels like they're more mature now, too. They have a good big band duo with Edie and Jackson. This seems like a team that can be kind of a sleeper, even though they're the 2 seed at the moment. So, yeah, there you go. Memphis is finally back to where they were. They proved last year was a fluky season, with just the injuries and the suspensions and all that. And they're finally back, if you will. Moving on. Miami Heat. New era begins. Butler's no longer on the team. This is going to be a kind of a weird transition phase that the Heat got going on. Currently the 9th seed at the moment. The East, outside of the top probably 5 seeds, are kind of crap. But it's a really weird Miami team at the moment. Hero is obviously your star player with Bam Adebayo, and you just got Andrew Wiggins. I don't know how much longer he'll really be on the team. He probably got a few years. It's kind of a weirdly built roster, but, it feels like the start of a rebuild in Miami. They had a good couple years with Jimmy, 2 finals appearances that shocked the world both times. And, now you just got to move on and find your next piece in Miami. Milwaukee Bucks, end is near. Giannis era is almost over, guys. I hate to say it. The Dame trade, I like the trade. They went all in. Probably should have kept some depth pieces, but it has not worked. And spectacularly has not worked. Doc Rivers obviously didn't work. What the hell were they thinking with Doc Rivers? This team just has a lot of pieces. They just traded Middleton for Kyle freaking Kuzma. Sure. All right. Whatever. Yeah, this doesn't feel like Giannis is maybe really happy with the Bucks, so I can kind of feel like the end is near for Milwaukee, but I could see them maybe making a trade for maybe a Durant or a trade in this offseason. I don't know what the hell they would give up, but they have to do something to keep Giannis happy. That's all I'm saying. Number 18, Minnesota. Dumb trade. The Cat trade was so dumb. in trading Cat for Julius Randle and DiVincenzo. Now, offensively, I mean, Randle's not terrible, but he's not as good of a shooter as Cat, which was really important to have next to Rudy Gobert. That's why Cat and Rudy was such a good big man duo, because both complemented each other. Now Anthony Edwards is kind of your only real big piece, especially offensively. And we come to playoff time, it doesn't seem like that's going to really help them that much. So, it kind of seems like Minnesota just, for no reason, just shot themselves in the foot. I don't know why. I still don't know why they made that trade. And they're lucky that wasn't even the dumbest trade of the last 365 days. People forget about how bad how bad the Cat trade was, but, oh well. Moving on, New Orleans Pelicans. Please trade Zion. They finally traded Brandon Ingram, who's always hurt. Now, please just trade Zion. Get something for him. I think it's going to happen this offseason. Or enough is enough. I've defended Zion so many times throughout his career, and I've just run out of patience with him too. Enough is enough. This is not going to work. And you knew when they drafted him. Everybody knew when they drafted him that it was never really going to work out in New Orleans. They ruined stars. They ruined Anthony Davis. They, wasted Chris Paul's prime. It happens all the time in New Orleans. Just give it up and, just start a rebuild. Maybe try and Cooper Flag. I don't know. New York Knicks, this the year is what I had written down. This the year. Question mark. This is a really solid team. Jalen Brunson's finally become, not finally, but he's broken out fully into solidifying himself as like a top 15, maybe top 10-ish player in the NBA. Mikal Bridges had a rough start to the season, but has really picked it up. Cat has been fantastic for them. So it's been great for New York. You have a ton of pieces, ton of depth. And, you think maybe this could be finally the year New York breaks out and makes the finals for the first time since 1999. Almost done. We're in the final 10. Oklahoma City Thunder, just like Samuel Jackson said, don't mess up. You have all the assets in the world, tremendous young roster, the MVP of the league in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, 2 other All-Stars, some great rotation players. This is easily the championship favorite team. They better win the finals this year. They have a ton of young assets. Not only should they win the finals this year, but this should be the next dynasty in the NBA. But just don't screw it up. You had it with Durant, Harden, and Russ, and you screwed it up. So don't mess this one up too. Please. Number 22, Orlando Magic. Score some points. This is like the Iowa Hawkeyes, the Pittsburgh Steelers of the NBA. Low scoring, ugly brand of basketball that gets the job done because how good their defense is. But they have the worst offense in the NBA, but yet they're still going to be a playoff team. They were apparently looking for some kind of scoring threat at the deadline, but nothing really materialized. I imagine they don't even need like something crazy. They just need like maybe I think DeAndre Hunter would have been perfect for this team. But obviously the Cavs managed to get him instead of Orlando. There's a couple of players that are at the deadline that Orlando probably should have gotten to give them just some juice offensively, because it doesn't really feel like they have that at the moment. Philadelphia 76ers. Process is dead. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. The process is dead in Philadelphia. Joel Embiid, this is it for Embiid. I can't imagine he's got any more left in the juice. Paul George is the new face of washed. 2 points last night in 37 minutes against the freaking Brooklyn Nets. And Tyrese Maxey's always in and out of the lineup too. Yeah, just shut it down the rest of the season. The GM and coach, Nurse and Morey probably going to get fired. But just give it up. Honestly, probably look to trade The issue is that, yes, we point out they gave that huge ass extension to Joel Embiid knowing he had these issues. Probably a dumb decision. I thought the Paul George move was stupid. So I would just find anything you can to get rid of those two contracts and just see what you can do around Maxey and just kind of go from there if you're Philly and just restart. It just didn't work. It didn't work. Number 24, Phoenix Suns, horrible situation. Obviously, they tried to trade for Jimmy Butler. Apparently, there was a trade in place to get Jimmy and trade Durant, but Durant said no, he didn't want to go to Golden State. So that kind of indicates that Kevin Durant's eyeing his way out, which, shocker, when the going gets rough, Kevin Durant wants out. Shocker. Bradley Beal is on the worst contract in the NBA, and it's a no-trade clause, so they can't just get rid of him. So they couldn't get Jimmy Butler because of those two things. I would probably just kept Durant anyways, unless Durant wants out, which it seemingly he probably does though. So you have no real draft capital, a horrible contract in Bradley Beal. And now Kevin Durant also wants out if you gave up a ton to get him. So yeah, it feels like probably blow this up again and start over with Book. But thing is, Book's not getting any younger. You have to strike it now with Devin Booker and try and have another win now type of roster. You can't just sit around for like another 5-6 years and wait on something to happen while Booker's wasting away his prime. And that's kind of what sucks in Phoenix, because they really don't have a lot of options to go with. Portland Trailblazers, on the right path. They moved on mutually from the Dame era. They have some pretty good young assets throughout. Scoot has not been the player we hoped, but a couple of like Sharp and whatnot. Donovan Klingen's been pretty solid. So yeah, they have some pieces. They have some capital. They're on the right path. They're slowly doing this, not rushing anything. And they're actually haven't done as terrible this season as you thought they would. So, they got 55 by Jamal Murray dropping their head the other night. Whatever, but this franchise is on the right path. They got the young players, but now they just need one of those players to really hit on something. They just feel like they have a bunch of guys, like pretty good guys, but just a bunch of guys. Sacramento Kings, flash in pan. That playoff run a couple years ago, seemingly now is just a flash in the pan. Because De'Aaron Hunter's off the team. He's in San Antonio. You brought in Zach LaVine. DeMar DeRozan's not doing great for you. And that just feels like Sacramento Kings are right back to where they were for the last however many years before De'Aaron Fox really exploded. Just another team in the NBA, middling. I don't think after the season they're really even going to be like a play-in caliber team. And I don't see any big names wanting to go over the Sacramento. Their current situation is not great. They're kind of just now become the Chicago Bulls of the West. Just like that. Oh, and they have DeRozan and LaVine now. Might as well. San Antonio Spurs finally got co-star. They finally did it in San Antonio. De'Aaron Fox and with Victor Wembanyama is going to be an insane duo for years to come. They finally pulled it off. Maybe it won't go into any success this season, but for the next probably 5-6 years of De'Aaron Fox's prime, the next however many years of Victor Wembanyama, this team seems like it's got to win at least one, maybe two championships with this duo at the helm. And it's perfect. And they got Chris Paul helping, with everything. It just really now looks like they need Popovich to either get healthy or Popovich's probably going to move on, I think, after this season with his health issues. Just move him to like a front office type of role. So maybe San Antonio's going to find a new coach and go from there with this new era of Spurs basketball. Number 28, Toronto Raptors. 9 seed super team. This is the most insane 9 seed you've ever seen. This is the most mid-ass roster I've ever seen. The Ingram move makes no sense at all because he doesn't really elevate your team that much, if at all. I mean, they didn't trade anything to get him, so that's cool. But, like, I mean, what? Sure, yeah, this roster screams like a solid 41, 42 wins, play in at best case scenario, a first round out in 5 or 6 games. Yeah, sure. Why not Toronto? Second last team here, Utah Jazz. Tanking for flag. You know, they didn't make any moves deadline. They feel like they're really trying to tank for flag at the moment, but they kept the roster together because if flag comes in, they have some not terrible, assets and players for him to play with. Like they have Markkanen, Sexton, Collins, like Keanu George, Walker Kessler, V, and of course Jordan Clarkson. So they have some solid players that they can just plug flag right into, and him not have like a terrible rookie campaign and start to his career. Like they actually have some guys he can rely on and lean on. And I think that's actually kind of smart for Utah. Whoever they draft is keep this team together that they have in the moment, and you can plug your rookie in right away and not have to worry about him having to carry the roster. He can just sit back and really learn. And I probably should have just combined the last two, which is Jazz and the Wizards, because the Wizards I'd have, instead of tanking the flag, I just put wave the flag. Obviously, they're waving the white flag almost every game. 9-45 at the deadline of the All-Star break. I mean, just horrible team. But yeah, they are clearly just. This is one of the most blatant tank jobs I've ever seen. Yeah, they just traded Kuzma for Chris Middleton for some reason. Not really sure why. They also just got Marcus Smart for some reason. I'm not sure why either. And somebody pointed out that maybe the Wizards could also be kind of doing like Utah does and hope Cooper Flag goes their team and they can have like a Middleton and a Marcus Smart for him to help rely on. I don't really know because the rest of the roster is still butt ass. So, I mean, sure. I'm not really sure Jordan Poole moves the needle that much, but I mean, you might as well. This is one of the worst teams I've ever seen. That all being said, thank you all. Good night. It's been a fun couple weeks, and yeah, we're gonna keep this going now with senior semester. So, have a blessed one, and good night.